to dream the impossible dream, to fight the unbeatable foe, to bear with unbearable sorrow, to reach the unreachable star. This is my quest, to follow that star, no matter how hopeless, no matter how far, to fight for the right without question or pause, to be willing to march into hell for a heavenly cause. And I know if I only be true to this glorious quest, that my heart will lie peaceful and calm when I'm laid to my rest. And the world will be better for this, that one man, scorned and covered with scars, still fights with his last ounce of courage to reach the unreachable stars.
Tonight, an impossible dream fulfilled or shattered. 45-year-old George Foreman faces heavyweight champion Michael Moorer in his quest to regain the most glorious title in sport.
Perfect, 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 perfect.
I was gonna rip his heart out. I'm the best ever. I'm the most brutal and vicious and most ruthless champion there's ever been. There's no one can stop me. Lynx is a conqueror. No, I'm Alexander. He's no Alexander. I'm the best ever. There's never been anybody as ruthless. I'm Sonny Liston. I'm Jack Dempsey. There's no one like me. I'm from Nairclaw. There's no one that can match me.
What's good? It's your man Carl Cleveland representing the Ville, coming at you from one of Carl's corners. This week we are going to be discussing the legendary fight between George Foreman and Michael Moorer. But before we do that, let me go ahead and give a shout out to the sponsors. My man Chuck P, representing the Ville. If you're not already a member, I'm gonna need y'all to hit that subscribe button, hit that bell notification so y'all can get the latest updates and news from KTFO. I mean, the stuff is hilarious, so y'all need to go ahead and subscribe. Now that we done paid the bills and got that out the way, let's go on get into this fight between Big George Foreman and Michael Moorer. Saturday, November 5th, 1994, in Las Vegas, Nevada, the MGM Grand Arena. I got fond memories of this fight because the date it happened after my birthday. So this was actually a birthday gift from my grandmother to me, who had one of those hot cable boxes. Anybody that grew up in the 90s, y'all should know about it. Had all the pay-per-views, movie channels, nasty channels, all the good stuff. So my grandmother, she knew I was a boxing fan, so she told me she gonna let me come over. She don't care what none of my uncles or my cousins say. When the fight come on, I can sit in the living room with the big TV, watch it, and nobody better not turn that channel. And that made me feel real good at a young age. So I have a very, very vivid memory of this fight. So I just, also with that, man, I have a memory of the build-up, because if you guys didn't know, this was during George Foreman's comeback You know, when he turned face, he used to be the heel. He was the villain, the bad guy. Nah, he was really the politician, man. He had spent a large time out of boxing. He became a pastor. He had his own church. At this time, when he did his comeback, he became a salesman, man. And people didn't know whether he was just doing this for a money grab or was it actually for the love of boxing. But I remember one of the commercials for this fight to build up. George Foreman is like running around the neighborhood, man. And people giving this dude like chips and burgers. And he's just like jogging and eating this stuff. And it was hilarious, man. It was hilarious. And you had people who was critics of this fight at the time because if you will remember, his last fight before the fight with Michael Moorer, he lost against Tommy Morrison. What was that? I think it was a unanimous decision. It was about 17, 18 months before the Michael Moorer fight. So you had people who was like, George was just doing this for a money grab because he had also come back against Evander Holyfield, put up a good fight, but he eventually lost. The fight against Tommy Morrison, he just looked old and slow, and people started doubting his power because Tommy Morrison had a weak chin and he couldn't stop him. I remember this fight, the build-up as well. My man Michael Moorer was upset because he felt like he didn't get the credit he deserved for that fight against Holyfield, that he felt like he was overshadowed because of Teddy Atlas's, he calls them antics. Nah, don't get me wrong, Teddy Atlas, he had them stories, man, but in this fight against Foreman, he was giving Michael Moorer all the advice, the right advice, and Mike just decided not to do it. So at the end, it really looked like Mike let his ego get in the way of a victory, man. But we're going to go ahead and get into this fight. All right, you had round one. You had both fighters. They came out throwing jabs. Moorer was like, he was throwing a more conventional jab. Foreman was like, he was throwing a clubbing jab. If any pitchers, if baseball players out there, like his jab was 12 to 6, man. Like he was coming from 12 o'clock to 6 o'clock. It was really weird, but he touched Michael Moorer a couple times. George landed a counter right hook, I want to say, first 30 seconds of the first round, and Moorer ate it, man. He took it. He ate it clean. So Moorer feeling like he took his power. Moorer was very, very right-hand heavy in this fight, and even more so in this first round. Now, don't get me wrong, he was connected with his shots. He was throwing a couple shots to the body, straight rights to the head, or not straight rights, excuse me. He was fighting in a southpaw stance, so he was throwing jabs to the head, and he was doing with the lead hooks. He was really showed his speed and his quickness advantage over George in this first round. Don't get me wrong, George landed with a couple heavy right hands, but like I said, Moorer ate it, man. He ate it and he ate it. At the end of the round, Teddy gave Moorer some excellent advice. He was basically telling him, like, don't fight him at the same distance, change the distance, change the range, quicken up the pace, make him fight at a faster pace because he's an older fighter. He's going to be able to keep up with that pace. Either he's going to tire himself out or he's going to lose due to the damage he's accumulated. But my man, he really wasn't listening. So more something else that I didn't like. He was standing in front of Foreman that first round, man. He was still landing the jabs and the hooks, but Moorer shouldn't have got touched like he did a couple times, man. It was a more round, but he should have done a little better, man. Round two, my man Michael Moorer standing right in front of George Foreman, but he is the faster man. Moorer keeps moving to his left, which is basically into the right hand of George Foreman. Like I said, Moorer was still landing jabs and hooks, and basically showing his speed, man. George Foreman lands a nice right with about 25 seconds in the round, but it was another Michael Moorer round, man. Moorer at the end of the round two, though, he tasted George's power, and I felt like if that round had a little more time left, he might have had more respect for George, but he didn't. Round 3, Moorer is coming forward. Seems like he isn't respecting George's power, and for that he ate a couple 1-2s, but he is still landing back. Moorer, I didn't like the defense he was showing because he wasn't using no head movement. He was basically just using his offense, basically throwing punches as his defense. George was like loaded up in his shots early, and like you could see him from a mile away, but he was still touching Michael. And that's something that there was a 19-year age difference. Coming into this fight, George Foreman is 45, and Michael Moorer was 26. George shouldn't have been able to touch Mike as easily as he was doing. I know Mike was fighting flat-footed, but even when you fight flat-footed, you still gotta have some bob and weave. You still gotta have some head movement, man. Mike was just, I don't know, man. He was just he was in his feelings that night, man. Atlas gave him some great advice in the corner at the end of the round. He told him pick up the pace. He said, don't let him slow to the old man pace. And he was telling them basically to move to his right on defense so he wouldn't be moving the right hand of George. Moorer did finish that 3rd round strong though. 4th round, George Foreman slowed down, and he slowed down the pace. He lands a couple nice shots. Moorer answers. You could tell both fighters had slowed down. Moorer kind of let George Foreman off the hook because at the end of the round previous, he kind of picked up the pace, but he kind of slowed back down his 4th round, and he did not like pressure George the way he should have. He basically let George, old man his way through the round, and Atlas got on him at the end of the round, basically told him stop standing right in front of him, man. It's a round, like I said, this one could have gone either way because it is slowed down, but my man Atlas was not happy, man. He was giving him the right advice. He was telling him things he wanted to do. And then what you would see was Michael Moorer would come out the round, and sometimes he would listen. He would come out, he would start hitting George with a couple rights, get out the way. He would get in, get out, hook to the body. But what happened was George threw a hook to the belt line, and then he left with a straight right upstairs and hit more heavy. He started landing shots to the head, started landing a couple shots to the body, but he was still standing in front of George. Then George started slowing down. Last minute of the round, Moorer lands a combo and to the body and seems to have gotten a second win. And right after he seems to have gotten that second win, he slows right back down, lets George Foreman off the hook with that slower pace, man. That 5th round, once again, could have gone to either one. But for me, I just saw Michael Moorer being more active all the rounds up to this point. So at this point, I got to fight 50-45. You could possibly gave George Foreman a 2nd round, maybe because in that round, punch stats were kind of similar. He landed some nice shots, but for the most part, in the fight thus far, Michael Moorer is being more active. He's faster, he's quicker, seems to be the younger man. Only thing he's really not doing is going to the body consistently, and he's standing right in front of the open man with power, just daring them to hit him. He got not cut, but he got touched a couple times, and I thought, man, if it was somebody with a weaker chin, he would have went down. But for the most part, his beard is holding up. All right. Getting in the 6th round, both fighters seem to have gotten their energy back, man. And they throwing more punches. Moorer is still landing, but he's still standing right in front of George. George, as you know, landing a couple shots because Moorer is kind of being arrogant at this time. Like I said, he wasn't moving his head. He wasn't going back and forth. He wasn't bobbing and weaving, man. He was basically just standing there. He was not using lateral movement. He fought flat-footed for majority of this fight, and to me, it was his detriment, man. He could have made this fight a lot easier than what it was, but he was still getting the shots off. So to this point, I can't get mad at him. George's shots, at this time, they started looking heavier and harder than Moore's. It would be like Moore would land a pop, and then George would land a boom with one of his shots. So you could see the power difference, even though Moore, I guess, he just wanted to ignore it, man, because he's still landing more shots at the time, but the shots are not having the same effect on George as they were earlier. All right. Round 7, it started with both men probing each other with the jab. You can still see the speed difference between Michael Moorer and George Foreman, man. It would be just like a straight left would land, and then George Foreman would counter with a 1-2. Moorer would land straight right to the head and a hook to the body. George Foreman is like, at this time, he's loading up on his punches. Excuse me for a second. To take a drink of water. My mouth got kind of dry, but anyways, he was still landing them punches, but he was moving at a snail's pace, man. Moore keeps popping him with the right jab. Like I said, he was very right hand dominant in this fight. He could have mixed up a lot more with the left hook, or even the straight the straight left hand, fighting as a southpaw against a conventional fighter. But Moore, they tried to sell him like he was ambidextrous, but he really wasn't, man. To me, he seemed like he was just a conventional fighter fighting in a southpaw stance, trying to get his dominant hand as the front hand. And for the most part, it worked, but he could have been more versatile, man, because I've seen him in his previous fight use his left hook to the head and to the body. To this point, that shot was non-existent. I seen him use the straight left as a nice shot to get somebody bagging up, man. To this point, the shot was non-existent. Moore's corner I can hear them yelling to Moore to pick up the pace because they see that George Foreman is slowing down and they want Moore to pick up the pace to either punish him more or make George use more energy. Moore starts boxing the last seconds, about the last 30 seconds of the round, and he really made it look easy. So at this point into the fight, I'm starting to think that Moore is just going to outbox my man into a decision as long as he does not get greedy. This is one of the parts of the fights that I hate the most, and this is why most of the time I put the fights on mute. But and I had the volume on when I went and rewatched this fight. And this segment we're gonna call this Stupid Things the Commentators Say. And this week's author of the quote is Larry Merchant. And this stupid mofo said, I quote, "I think the myth of George Foreman's power has been exposed by Michael Moorer so far. He does not have the quickness to make the force to get a knockout." I'm thinking to myself, dude, have you seen the shots he's landing? He's landing some bombs. Moore just got a beard. Don't say he ain't got the power when you seen him. Because if you watch this fight, Foreman landed a few punches that make you go, damn. And I thought that he would have knocked Moore out with those punches, but he didn't. This sounds like Groundhog Day, because at the end of this round, Atlas, once again, he gave great advice to Moore. He told him to pick up the pace and make the old car break down. He said, basically, if it's an old car and it's going down the street, if it's going slow, it's going to be able to make it. But if you make that car speed up, that car is going to break down. So I'm thinking yeah, that's some damn good advice, man. Some damn good advice that Teddy Atlas is once again giving Michael Moorer. And what does Michael Moorer do? Comes out kind of slow in the 8th round. George lands a big right hand. I think it was at 2 minutes and 15 seconds left in the 8th round that you could tell it stunned Moorer. And it backed him up. George then landed a 1-2 that half hit, half missed. Backed him to the ropes to get a little bit. But then Michael Moorer, he weathered the storm, and then he began to pick up the pace. If he'd have done that, he wouldn't have got caught with that right hand, but he started landing right jabs, right hooks to the head, into the body. He started going to the body. He landed a straight left, and Foreman, what was that? He said, what was that? It was a straight left that sent Foreman stumbling. They say it was a trip. I really didn't get to see the feet, but after badly getting hurt in the first half of that 8th round, Michael Moorer came storming back, and then he hit George Foreman. He ended the round with a left hook, right uppercut combination that was devastating. And Michael Moorer really solidified taking that round again, man. So 9th round, you got Moorer once again standing in front of George Foreman, not really using any head movement. His offense is his defense, because at this point, he really was hitting George with any and everything because he was faster. George would hit him back, but the pace was slower. It would be pop, pop, pop. George would be blam. Then it would be pop, 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 pop. Then George would hit him, blam. But the blams was getting fewer and far between each other, and Mike was kind of lighting him up. And then he slowed down the pace, which was what, I don't know, man. Maybe he was out of shape. Maybe he ain't had the energy. Maybe the nerves was getting to him. But whenever he was listening to Atlas and he was keeping up the pace, and he was getting in and getting out and not getting hit, he was basically dominating Foreman. When he slowed down, gave Foreman time to think and to breathe, that's when he got caught with the jabs and the right hands. A couple left hooks, man. It's like Moorer just did not think, man. Moorer was still right hand dominant to the fight, and it's like Atlas wanted Moorer to fight fast but not reckless at the end of 9th round. He basically told him, like, man, come on. We got 10, 11, 12 left. He was like, I want you to fight at an amateur's pace, but I don't want you to be reckless, man. I want you to be defensively sound. To that point, Michael Moorer really wasn't, man. Round 10, Moorer started the round with a right jab to the body. I'm thinking, good. He about to go to the body. He about to let this happen. Foreman lands the left hook to the hip of Michael Moorer that gets him to turn into a direction. I think it turned Michael Moorer to his right, and Michael Moorer eventually circled to his right, and he got hit with a right hand. But Beard, like I kept saying earlier, Michael Moore's beard was solid in his fight, and he ate it. And Moorer is standing in front of Foreman and in range, and he's getting tagged. Foreman starts hitting, and even though Foreman is starting to hit him, and some of his punches is getting sloppy and off balance, he was still connecting. Then, like, it looked like, all right, Michael Moorer got himself together because Foreman was lunging, but Moorer was not moving his head. He was still standing in front of George. About 113 left in the 10th round. George hit him with a 1-2. Then he threw it again, and it was like Michael Moorer went down like a ton of bricks. And it was at that moment Michael Moorer knew that he had fucked up. Night is over. KO. Have the oldest heavyweight champion in the history of boxing, Big George Foreman, man. This fight has some memories in it because of the speeches that were given, some of the action, because George Foreman landed some bombs on Michael Moorer. Michael Moorer took it. To me, it seemed like Michael Moorer was not fighting a smart fight, even though he was winning. He was doing it basically just off his athleticism and his youth. But once he began to fatigue and he couldn't take the shot no more, the shot that knocked him out was a perfect 1-2 right on the chin. Night. Go home, everybody. To me, this fight is one of the best examples of what could have been, man. Because if he would have boxed George Foreman, what I mean by box is use that right jab, use that right to the jab to the body, straight left hook, in and out, bobbing and weaving head movement instead of just standing in front of George Foreman, who's known as a goddamn puncher, like a damn bobblehead or like a rock'em sock'em robot. He would have won the fight, man. If he would have listened to the corner, he would probably won the fight. Like, Michael Moorer is a former heavyweight champion in the world, and people don't have fond memories of him because of this fight. Like, he ends up losing the rematch with Holyfield. He got knocked out by David Tua, and David Tua is somebody that, honestly, people have a fonder memory of because of his style, because of a couple of his knockouts. Even though he never became champion, people remember him more fondly than they do a dude who actually became heavyweight champion. And that should really tell you something, man. And then he lost to some dude named Alicia Castillo. I have no idea who that cat was. I went and looked him up. Like, he's somebody who I think he lost to Vladimir Klitschko, Jonathan Banks, and oh God, one of the dudes that knocked out Roy Jones, Dennis Lebedev or something like that, man. But Michael Moorer is somebody who left so much money, and his legacy was left on the table, because if he could have pulled off that fight with George Foreman, people are now talking about Michael Moorer versus Lennox Lewis, Michael Moorer versus Riddick Big Daddy Bo. Rematch between Michael Moorer and Evander Holyfield. He's even more of a damn a draw, a money favorite. Mike Tyson, when he get out the joint and he get his shit together, Mike Tyson versus Michael Moorer. That's a dream fight, man, if he beats George Foreman. But him being in his feelings, he ends up losing the fight, man. So I'm gonna need y'all right now, if y'all are younger, not to be in y'all feelings when you got important shit ahead of you, man. Like, that's a crossroad fight. He wins that fight, like I say, we remember him differently, man. We remember him differently. And the fact that he was in his feelings, he fucked up his legacy and cost himself millions, man. Cost himself millions. Hey, that's just my opinion. I'm gonna need y'all to comment. Tell me if y'all agree or disagree in the comment section below. Let me know how y'all felt about the video. Tell me y'all memories of the fight. Oh yeah, before I go, I'm gonna tell you a memory of the fight, because I'm giving it to you now. I'm gonna let you know what I was thinking as a little kid. Like, as a little kid, I'm thinking that George Foreman is getting his ass whooped, but he keep landing them big shots. And like I said, my grandmother had the hot cable box. We had 4 or 5 of them. My uncle was up in the attic. He had changed the channel because he had said that Foreman was getting his ass beat so bad, he just changed it. Then he hear me screaming, "He knocked him out! He knocked him out! I told you! I told you!" Because that at that moment, it was epic to me at that time. It was epic, and I was telling everybody he was gonna knock him out. So I have very fond memories of this fight. But as I got older, I'm just like, Michael Moorer, man, what could have been? What could have been, man? My next Cause Corner, I believe I'm gonna be doing. I think I'm gonna be doing Jeff Horn and Manny Pacquiao with my man Marcus Noll from Ohio Runs Boxing. See if my man Chuck can hook that up, because you know he got pulled. Chuck got connections. He can hook his boy up with simple requests like that. So I'm gonna need y'all to tell me what y'all thought. Carl Cleveland, I'm out.
Perfect, 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 perfect.
I was gonna rip his heart out. I'm the best ever. I'm the most brutal and vicious and most ruthless champion there's ever been. There's no one can stop me. Lynx is a conqueror. No, I'm Alexander. He's no Alexander. I'm the best ever. There's never been anybody as ruthless. I'm Sonny Liston. I'm Jack Dempsey. There's no one like me. I'm from Nairclaw. There's no one that can match me.